On the other hand, many community colleges and some universities are developing contractual relations with particular businesses and industries to repurpose existing courses or create new ones. For example, it is easier, less time-consuming, and less expensive for a college to repurpose an algebra course than for a corporation to build a new course from scratch. The important point about such collaborations is that they are taking place across national boundaries in increasing numbers, thus expanding an already vibrant and energetic global economy. Web technology is certainly not the cause of the rise of the current globalization in the economy and may not be a major player yet. However, information technology in general and to an increasing degree the World Wide Web are bound to play a major role in the economic growth of each country as well as the global marketplace as a whole. The consistent growth of the satellite industry with ever more powerful communication satellites such as SatMex 5 manufactured by Hughes and the medium we are using for today's program to reach the Americas for the first time have footprints that have the capability to cover an entire continent with only one transponder. PanamSat, Loral, and many other satellite operators that provide support to the Internet are truly offering intercontinental, global, live video linkage services at increasingly affordable prices for business, education, and government institutions. I expect this trend to continue so that point-to-point, bidirectional electronic interactions across continents can become more commonplace in the next few years. Paul Romer, an economist based in California, is credited with a third way of thinking about the emerging global economy. He believes that a nation's long-term rate of economic growth will be determined by its rate of technological progress. In fact, those countries that make serious investments in education, research, and technological advancement are those that will also gain better access to the global economy and profit from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saba. Let us begin the first question and answer session. We will try to answer as many questions as possible. Therefore, we ask that only one question be asked per phone call, and that these questions be as brief as possible. You may call the studio directly at the phone numbers or fax, which now appear on your screen. We remind you to make your phone calls at a distance from the monitor to avoid feedback. We have a question from Fenalco, Medellin, Colombia. Is it possible to develop a database with XML? And if so, how different is it from a relational database?
That's a good question. A relational database is based on rows and columns, whereas XML is a hierarchical database. So they work hand in hand to meet different needs.
And we have a question from the Instituto Universidad Empresa, Universidad Blas Pascal, Cordoba, Argentina. It has to do with all the new technologies emerging practically every day, how can we stay updated? How can anyone keep up with all of this?
Well, I think that one of the major trends of the Internet is that major new technologies are being delivered by outsourced services. There are companies such as DoubleClick that outsource advertising banners, and Interview is an example of an outsourced service for video, which is changing at a dramatic rate. And in rapidly changing fields, I think outsourced services make a tremendous amount of sense.
We have a question from Peru, from Universidad Nacional de Ingeniería in Lima. Welcome. Your question, please.
Buenos días. Buenos días. from the National Customs School. The development of technologies in communications will create a new restructuring in the social activity worldwide. It will probably generate a greater impact in the labor market, and people will be focused, perhaps will end up in a social chaos. In what way do you think that the big monopolies that are dedicated to the technological advances of the corporations, what are they thinking of doing in order to prevent this chaos that they can be causing?
Okay.
Well, technology can be liberating as well as organizing. I think that our traditional notions of organizations are changing. There's a whole new science, it's called chaos theory. And when you take a look at how chaos theory looks at organizations and self-organizing situations, you will see that it may seem chaotic at one level of analysis, but when you dig deeper, there is a secondary level of organization that is not perhaps visible to the naked eye.
Could I add something to that? We are going through a transformation right now as great as the transformation that occurred during the Industrial Revolution. And during that time, the feudal system disappeared and a new mercantile age arose. And that created tremendous stress among the people because the previous systems disappeared. And that same transformation is occurring right now, and we just have to recognize that and deal with that type of stress. But the rules will definitely change.
And we have a question from the Universidad La Salle in Mexico, DF. Welcome. Your question, please.
The question is the following. With regard to the Internet 2 project, what would be the possibilities for our university to participate in this project, to get involved in this project? Thank you.
I think if your university is interested, they should contact Internet 2 project. They have a set of criteria. If your university meets those criteria, I believe that you can participate just like any other university that has approached the project and is participating right now.
And we have a question from the Instituto Tecnológico de León in León, Guanajuato. Welcome. Your question, please.
The question is, do you currently have, is there any software technology in development, in progress, in order to filter somehow the junk, the Internet junk that is circulating?
Well, the Internet really is a tremendous resource, and the way that resource is dealt with is by portals or search engines that aggregate content, and it's important for people to find their trusted guides to lead them to the information that they want.
And we have a question from the Federación Nacional de Comerciantes in Medellín. Welcome. Your question, please.
Our question is the following. What are the logistic aspects and legal aspects in order to develop a virtual commercial? There is no sound. Adelante, por favor, Colombia.
We did not get all of that question.
Adelante. Medellín, ¿aló?
Hello?
Okay, we're repeating the question. What aspects, logistics, and legal aspects must you take into account in order to have a fair, a commercial world fair, virtual fair, something like an expo, a virtual expo, world expo? Thank you. Gracias.
Okay, thank you for the question.
That is a very interesting question. I don't think that I have thought about such an interesting concept. So I don't know if Dr. Gruber has any ideas over that.
Well, I don't think there are any legal limitations to that, and I think it's a good idea. In each field, there are virtual fairs that are occurring today. For instance, right now, there's E3, which is the fair for games, electronic games, and the entire conference is being hosted on pseudo.com site, and you can see, I think, 6 simultaneous streams from that convention.
And we have a question from the Grupo Tlalnepantla in the state of Mexico. Welcome. Your question, please.
Buenos días. How can we access the new millennium with all this new peak technology in an underdeveloped country like Mexico within this economic globalization, given that we do have other priorities? Thank you.
Good.
Well, if I can address that question, there is no other priority as important as learning the new technology. The new technology is what is going to drive the economics of the future, and that should be the #1 priority for any developing economy, Mexico, the United States, and anywhere else in the world. Now, if you're talking about the cost of access to technology, that cost is decreasing every 12 to 18 months. And so, inevitably, this kind of technology will be available to more people as time progresses.
I'd like to add that the infrastructure of the phone systems are sufficient in developing countries, and even though the countries are maybe coming on a little bit slower, they missed the 14.4 and 28.8 stage, and they could move right to 56K or DSL and avoid all that initial investment, because I don't believe it's any more expensive to develop 56K. So I think it's actually a great opportunity for the developing countries to catch up to the United States and other countries.
Thank you. We have a question from the Instituto Politécnico Nacional Esca Santa Tomas in Mexico, DF. Welcome. Your question, please.
Buenos días. We would like to send you our greetings. We have a question. An administrative and managing principle has to do with division of labor, and also the limiting of the job descriptions. Does internet enable this definition of labor, the positions and the division of labor, or does it, within globalization, does it globalize? What's the effect?
Well, it absolutely helps in division of labor. You can see that in education, you can see that in business and in industries. New technologies bring new kinds of skills and new kinds of competencies, and so therefore there will be more kinds of expertise and skills will be needed in the future to conduct education and business. So there definitely is going to be an increase of division of labor. That, in fact, is one of the indicators of a progressive economy. The division of labor is one indicator of a developed economy.
We have a question from the Dominican Republic, the Centro de Gestión e Investigación in Santo Domingo. Welcome. Your question, please.
Thank you. Yes, sí, le escuchamos. My question is, what is the media that you recommend to transmit data on the internet? Do you think satellite, or which medium supports 2.4 megahertz speed?
Okay.
Well, that is a question to ask your friendly local phone or cable or satellite company. It depends on what is deployed in your area, and I suggest that you consult with them.
Right. There are two aspects. You're referring to the final mile, And then there's also the interconnection from the publisher to the final mile. And again, that depends on the phone company as well.
And we have a question from Jalisco, from the Instituto Tecnológico de Ocotlán in Jalisco, Mexico. Welcome. Your question, please.
Good morning. Our question is, what would be the most efficient way to install FTP, which is the protocol, the file transfer protocol, to an internet to transmit software and data?
I'm not sure what the question is. Is this on a particular server, or is this on a particular telecommunication line? Do you have the question still online?
Can we get a clarification of the question? Okay.
Question is, what is the most efficient way to install the FTP to a RAID in order to distribute software and data?
The FTP, the file transfer protocol?
Exactly, that one.
Okay, all right. Well,
thank you.
Again, those are very, very specific technical questions, and it really depends on what kind of servers do you have available to you, what kind of telecommunication lines do you have available. Those specific questions ought to be asked from those people who provide you with the server technology and with the telecommunication lines.
And we have a question from the Organization of American States in Washington, D.C. Welcome. Your question, please.
Yes. Hello. Good morning. I was interested in knowing, there is so much information out there about advanced technologies. Is there a reliable source or maybe a website where to read more on Internet 2, all its advantages and disadvantages maybe?
Very good. Sources for information.
Well, there's an organization in California called CNIC, which is the corporation that runs the Internet 2 for California corporations, and I believe they have a website. I think it's CNIC.
CNET?
CENIC.
CENIC.
Yeah, .org.
Others?
There are plenty of resources on the Internet. If you search under Internet 2, you will get several universities in eastern United States that are supporting information dissemination about Internet 2. One of the universities, of course, is MIT. MIT is always a very good source of information about all kinds of technological developments. Their media lab is one of the premier development laboratories for these technologies.
It used to be we could look to finding the book that was the authoritative source on something. I have friends who publish books on the Internet, and they have to do a new edition every 1 or 2 months. And of course, online is where the real information is. We have a question from the Centro Universitario de Tijuana in Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico. Welcome. Your question, please. Hello?
We know that Internet 2 is a catalyzer for education. However, we've seen several viruses, and that, of course, restricts that development and the expansion. How are we going to control? Is anything being done currently on that, on the control of viruses? And as far as Internet 2, we know that that's going to displace many mass media. But we would like to know whether this displacement, or this substitution rather, is becoming, instead of a mass media communication, to a personal communication, personal media. And so this would be a catalyzer for education. This would be a good channel for education, perhaps. Can you comment on this?
Well, I think there are several questions embedded in that one question. Let me say that Internet will inevitably personalize teaching and learning, so there will be a lot more personalization, individualization of teaching and learning. Now, as far as Internet 2 or any new medium displacing or replacing, that hasn't happened. Starting with the phonograph and radio. Radio now broadcasts more music than any other medium. So media complement each other. They don't replace or displace each other. The most innovative project that I've heard as far as viruses are concerned are by the IBM Corporation that is working on a dynamic system of detecting viruses on your personal computer and finding the antidote to that virus. That system is under development, and that's one of the developments to watch.
And we have a call from the state of Mexico, from the Universidad Tecnológico de Nezahualcóyotl. Welcome. Your question, please.
Good morning. This is a question for Dr. Gruber, particularly. In the area of electronics and telecommunications, telecommunications has impacted very much on a worldwide scale. How can the web technology help, and how can it be applied in the countries that do have the appropriate resources?
Okay, well, in terms of telecommunication helping, I think that communication definitely increases the ability of communities to understand each other and to get along. So I think if you're asking a social question, it's tremendously helpful. And the second half of the question was how if someone has the resources, how would they get up to speed and get started? And I think the goal is to turn to some of the leading companies in the fields that you're interested in and try to work with them to bring you fast forward.
And we have a question from the Universidad Veracruzana in Jalapa, Veracruz, Mexico. Welcome. Your question, please.
Thank you. The question is, does Internet 2 technology, is that compatible with the current technological educational resources, or will this force the user to change equipments and software and make other major investments to switch to new technologies?
Well, one thing is that the basic language doesn't change. What we're mainly talking about is increased bandwidth. But the increased bandwidth means that you can get more exciting data, and you might want a faster computer or a faster final mile connection to get audio-video.
That's right. You may need some new routers and switches, but the backbone and the language of Internet will remain the same.
And we have a question from the Instituto Tecnológico de Estudios Superiores de Ecatepec in Ecatepec, Mexico. Welcome. Your question, please.
With the great advancement of the Internet technology, what do you think an educational institution should do? What steps do you recommend for an educational institution that is growing fast in order not to lag behind, especially given the fact that the financial resources are not abundant, that they're rather scarce? So what do you recommend?
Well, I've provided some examples of university business and industry cooperation. These technologies are expensive, and one way of universities engaging in such technologies is by cooperating with businesses and technologies who have a vested interest in helping your institution to grow technologically.
And we have a question from the Cerveceria Cuauhtémoc in Moctezuma in Monterrey, Nuevo León, Mexico. Welcome. Your question, please.
There will come a time when Internet 2 will replace the current Internet, and how long do you think this could happen? Does it depend on the expansion and development of Internet 2? What's the time length?
I don't think that replacement is the intent here or the goal. Internet 2 will be in parallel to Internet 1 in so many areas of the world, and they will work together. They will work hand in hand.
Right, that's absolutely correct. It's just viewed as enhancing the overall throughput of traffic to your computer.
And we have a question from the Universidad Autónoma de El Estado de Mexico in Toluca, State of Mexico. Welcome. Your question, please.
Good morning. Buenos días. My question is the following. How will the expansion of the Internet user change the machines that we right now know as PCs? Will the PCs extinct, die, just like the main phrase? Because now we have multiple ways of being online without having to be at a desk. And so will the servers only survive? And what machines do you think will substitute the common PCs? Are these PC dinosaurs now, or what?
Did I take that one? Okay, I think the PC is absolutely essential, and it will not go away. It will get faster and more powerful and simpler, and at the same time the costs will go down. But there's some very important reasons that everyone needs to have this powerful capability at their fingertips, and the servers provide the next level of data and computing power.
To confirm that, Dr. Gruber has 4 PCs at home, he was admitting before we talked.
And there are new Internet appliances appearing. These are dedicated, smaller pieces of equipment that will do only 1 or 2 functions.
We have a question now from the Colegio de Contadores Públicos de Lima in Lima, Peru. Welcome. Your question, please.
Buenos días. Greetings from the College of Accountants in Lima. There is a microprocessor right now that can identify where the communication is coming from, right, on the web. So to what extent should we rely that these kinds of gadgets or apparatuses will really protect us in the future from protect our privacy? Do you think we should support this new system to detect and identify calls or communications through the web? Also, XML, how can we access that or have agreements perhaps with Dr. Saba at some point in time in order to benefit from all this educational technology that you have available? Thank you.
Well, again, there were several questions embedded in that one question, and I will try to address the privacy issue is something that everyone should be responsible about and responsible for. Some legislations obviously are needed. Personal responsibility should be taken into consideration, and parental responsibility should be taken into consideration. I don't know if Dr. Gruber has any suggestions as far as privacy issues are concerned.
Yes, I believe that the privacy issues are a bit overblown when it comes to what Intel and Microsoft are trying to achieve, because after all, we all have telephone numbers that are uniquely identified, and for those of us who have cable TV, the set-top box has a unique number, and we know exactly from that number which pay-per-view movie you might be ordering. So the unique identifier is absolutely essential and nothing to be afraid of.
And International Training Center is developing new programs that will address new technologies such as XML, and I will be available to the center for presenting that information to you in the future.
We have a question now from the Instituto Politécnico Nacional Educación Continua in Mexico DF. Welcome. Your question, please.
We live in a world of poor people. do we have any information about the percentage of people that do have access to this technology, or is the internet only available and for rich and people who are privileged? That is our concern and our question.
I think it's important to look at the United States. The wealthiest people in the United States on the internet started with almost nothing. This is a revolution in technology that levels the playing field. And you will find people throughout the developing world who jump on this opportunity and become the new leaders of industry.
That also, we need to increasingly introduce less expensive technologies, such as e-machine that I presented to you. These kinds of technologies can be made available at a reduced cost. So we need to inform manufacturers of some of the specific needs of poorer countries, of less developed countries, for that kind of market.
And we have a question from the Universidad de Sonora in Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico. Welcome. Your question, please.
To all of you, a greeting from Hermosillo, Sonora. The question, first of all, I would like to congratulate all of the panelists for this wonderful topic. Our question for you is the following. We, in fact, understand that Internet does offer a fabulous opportunity for commercial exchange and trade, but at the same time it does imply certain risks, and for all of us who do use this medium as, for instance, with credit cards, and we are the only people responsible to offer that credit card number, for instance, and the moment we do give the number to the other part when we are trading or when we are doing commerce, buying or selling, we have no chance